This is Real in the Field Goals, and we are 31 weeks away from week one of the 2016 NFL season. I am Kenneth Arthur of fieldgoals.com, and with me, as always, Danny Kelly of fieldgoals.com. And we want to remind you that Real in the Field Goals during the playoffs is brought to you by Great Leap Studios. We'd like to thank them, Great Leap Studios. If you or your company is in need of high quality content writing, search engine optimization, blogging, website design, or other online marketing services, you just got to go to greatleapstudios.com or call them up at 347-460-5492. They're huge fans of the Seahawks and field goals, so, let them know that you're fans too. And, in the day of the internet age, it's just like Sandra Bullock in the net, and you want to have that nice web design. You're Sandra Bullock ordering a pizza. If those of you that remember the movie The Net from 1995, then go ahead and check out Great Leap Studios, and they'll make you look even more updated than that. On to the show. The Seattle Seahawks did not play this week. As I said, it's going to be about 1 more weeks till that. But we do have something rare occurring on Sunday, which is a Super Bowl without the Seahawks. It's going to be the Carolina Panthers and Denver Broncos, and it is weird. It's weird to even think of the fact that they had gone to the last two. And it just sort of.
It is weird.
Yeah. The last time they weren't in it was the end of the 2012 season, which seems like a long, long time ago.
Think about how much stuff has happened since the last time the Seahawks weren't in the Super Bowl in your life.
I mean, Justin Bieber was born.
And stuff. Yeah.
When the Seahawks last didn't go to the Super Bowl, Raiders of the Lost Ark was in theaters. It's pretty ridiculous.
The first, Empire Strikes Back was just coming out,
right? And then that was George Lucas had just been born.
Mm-hmm.
It's nuts how much stuff has happened since the last time the Seahawks did not go to the Super Bowl. The Seahawks had just become a franchise. I mean, all sorts of things going on back then. But Danny, this week it is the Panthers and the Broncos. How would you rate this year's 2-week lead-up media hype sort of session so far? Has it been a fun-filled little tweets and vines, or kind of boring between Peyton Manning and Cam Newton and company?
It's been a little boring, I think. I don't know what you think. I will throw the question back at you in a minute here, but I mean, obviously last year I was down in Arizona for the Super Bowl, like the run-up to the Super Bowl, so that was way more fun. But it doesn't seem like much has happened this week. I mean, obviously, there's kind of the typical Super Bowl crap, like the media day where there's a whole bunch of funny hijinks and all that stuff. But like, it just doesn't seem like there's been anything all that interesting in the last, week or so. It's been pretty quiet. So I don't know if that's normal. Again, it goes back to, it seems like several decades since the Seahawks haven't been in the Super Bowl. So I don't really remember what it's like when it's just random teams.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think the Titanic had just sunk the last time the Seahawks weren't in the Super Bowl.
They said that you couldn't sink it.
Right.
It was the unsinkable ship. Is
right?
I think what they called it. Yes. That
was named. They named the Titanic after the Seahawks.
Right.
Which was the weird thing about it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what all the stuff coming out of media day or whatever with. I don't know. It's hard to pay attention to it now without the team being there. I mean, don't you sort of appreciate the fact that the Seahawks do have some of the best personalities in the league?
Yeah, and when you said earlier in the show, you said the Seahawks didn't play this week, but they actually did kind of play sort of a similar sport to football in the Pro Bowl.
Did you watch it?
I did. I worked it actually in terms of I was working for SB Nation that day, so
I actually was it worth it?
I had to watch it. It was kind of a boring game, honestly.
Did you put your game down, flip it, and reverse it?
No, I didn't do that. I did tweet a little bit about it, and I did say the Seahawks are probably the most entertaining characters in that show. I wouldn't call it a game necessarily, but yeah, I mean, like Russell Wilson was the MVP. The offensive MVP, obviously. Michael Bennett was the defensive MVP. They were all doing kind of funny stuff. Richard Sherman took a reverse and lost 22 yards, which was hilarious. And then Bobby Wagner tackled him and laid on him for a while. Michael
No.
Bennett scored a touchdown. I don't know. It was fun. I mean, obviously that didn't count,
Kidding.
but it should have.
I literally don't know. I mean, I saw a couple tweets out there. I literally don't know any of this stuff. I didn't see Michael Bennett score
really?
a touchdown.
He took a direct snap like in the last like 2 minutes of the game or something like that. And I mean, even early in the game, no one was tackling. Basically, if you haven't watched the Pro Bowl, and I hadn't watched it in a while, there's no kickoffs. They don't want people to get hurt on kickoff.
Right.
There's barely any tackling. I mean, like,
right.
They basically, if you touch the guy, they like the refs bullet dead.
I mean, I think that the 3-point competition in the NBA has more significance to the game than the entire Pro Bowl itself does to football. That's why I'm not too concerned. But I do. It's the fun stuff. It's the guys tweeting out during the game. It's
Richard Sherman.
It is Michael Bennett getting a snap. It is Richard Sherman getting a run. I mean, it is sort of all this. It is Odell Beckham playing defense. Okay, what would this look like for a second? And that's all. That's fun, right? But what would you do to improve the Pro Bowl?
Well, there was I should have looked this up and give credit to whoever thought of it, but I saw someone say that.
I'll take credit, but we'll see.
It was kind of cool, and the idea would be to like name a Pro Bowl team or whatever, and then have a game where it's like NFL All-Stars, where it's like up and coming players, kind of like the NBA does with the slam dunk contest. Where it's like first and second year guys who are exciting and blah, blah, blah. Like, and they're all kind of more hungry or whatever to like get their names out there. Cause it seems like a lot of the guys, I mean, there was like a record number of people that canceled on the Pro Bowl or just, declined the invitation or whatever.
Right.
And it's because, most veterans don't want to get hurt. They are trying to
for good
rest
reason
up or whatever. Yeah. I mean, obviously you don't want to get hurt. But some of those other guys might be more inclined to go there because you just get more face time, in front of the fans, and good for your brand or whatever. But
I thought you were going to say good for your brain. I think we've established that football is not good for your brain, but
no, it's not. And then yeah, so I don't know. And I heard there was like lowest ratings in the last 3 years for the Pro Bowl this year. So
good.
I don't know. It's going in the right direction in terms of if you want to get rid of the Pro Bowl.
They do need to figure something out. I mean, I don't understand. I mean, they're playing a game for no reason. They're not really. I mean,
it's supposed to be entertaining, I guess. I don't know.
If you want, I think entertaining. I mean, I would really just sort of put it out there and sort of figure out what are the feats of football athleticism amazement in the same way of a three dunk contest would be fun, but a 3-point contest or a slam dunk competition. I mean, those are more popular than the NBA All-Star game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know there's no skills competition in the NFL, but there are skills. I mean, you've got Odell Beckham popularizing the one-handed catch. How about a catch competition? Do some
right.
a guy lofting up 30-yard passes, and you show it crazy. Do little trick catches or trick passes. I mean, you've got guys that can do weird trick things. How about an accuracy competition for quarterbacks to throw it into a little hole or something like that? There are, if you watch sports science or something like that, there are weird things that you could do that would be a lot more entertaining than a game where nobody's playing defense or doing kickoffs.
I mean, you could even have them play other sports too. People probably watch that. Like,
I would rather watch a field goal competition than the game.
Right. Or like have them go bowling or have them play dunk hoops or something.
Not only that, if you want like more star power, if you were gonna do like
mix in some celebrities,
a wild and crazy kids scenario, or the aggro crag, then obviously
that would be awesome. Actually, Tom
Brady would show up to that because now he's just that would be more fun and less chance of injury. I mean,
put him through the Ninja Warrior.
Yeah. Yes, do American Ninja Warrior. Do
that would be awesome.
Double Dare. I don't care. I would much rather watch that.
No, or like do like the American, not the American Ninja Warriors, but American Gladiators. Like do stuff like that where they have to play bucket ball or whatever.
I just would watch them like maybe do like, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader or something like that. And let's get some of these mental competitions out there.
Yeah, no, I think that would be cool. Because honestly, like even with the Seahawks in the game, I hadn't watched the game in I think I hadn't watched it since Russell Wilson was in it last, which was 3 years ago. So even with the Seahawks in it, it was pretty boring. Like it dragged in the like second half. Like at first, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of fun. Like whatever, they're playing different positions. That's kind of fun. Like Richard Sherman's on offense, Odell Beckham's playing defense, all that stuff. But it was really pretty boring. Just honestly, it was like, okay, this could end anytime now.
I think I would, I don't know. I mean, I would just rather watch a football game from this past. I would rather rewatch a couple games than watch one Pro Bowl. I mean, there's just so little to be gained from it. And I don't even know if I've ever watched a full Pro Bowl. And I don't think that as an NFL writer, I'm losing anything by not doing that. I don't think that it alters my ability to write about football. So.
It's not a game, really. It's really not a game. I mean, it's just like, I don't know what you call it. It's a show, really. It's just like, hey, let's throw the ball around,
Yeah, and I mean they've tried many things. They put it the week before the Super Bowl, which just eliminates 13 or 14 guys that are going to the Super Bowl from even having a chance to participate. It's sort of just it's just not a good thing, and it's time to change the way that the Pro Bowl is done. I've been saying it for a long time. I don't know if this might be the year that it happens. I mean, the NFL is definitely open to change. We've seen that with PATs and all sorts of things. So if you want more, and the NFL is the best league in America in terms of marketing itself. So I have no doubt that unless I'm shocked, to find out that it makes money, then so be it. But if it's not making enough money, and as you say, the ratings are going down, Goodell will figure something out to change the rules or to make it more marketable as soon as possible, because it's all about that almighty dollar.
I wonder how much the the NFL awards show or whatever. I wonder how the ratings are for that, because if they just did some sort of reality show with all the Pro Bowl players where they're just like hanging out and like you said, like playing trivia.
Right. I mean, that'd be cool.
I mean, that would be more entertaining to me, honestly. But
speaking of money, I did write today part 1 of the top 10 contract situations for the Seahawks. I know some people from there out on Field Goals read that. We can discuss that. By the way, we've got Jackson Bevins coming up in a little bit to talk about the Super Bowl and Cam Newton and Seahawks type stuff. But as far as these contract situations, I detailed 5 today. We got 5 coming out on the next one, which I'm sure will be Friday. But you've got the Doug Baldwin situation, J.R. Sweezy, Jimmy Graham, and the one that it seems to be getting the most blowback might be that so many people want to get rid of Jimmy Graham. They're like, "Well, I want that $9 million in cap space." What if you don't know anything about cap space? But anyway, Jimmy Graham. They spent the first round pick on him. They're saying that Jimmy Graham should be ready by the start of the season. I mean, that sounds excessive, but I mean, we've talked about this before. But Danny, just tell me, why are they not going to cut Jimmy Graham?
I don't think they made a trade, a first round pick, and trade away Max Unger so they could use him for 1 year and then cut him, or half a year and then cut him. I don't understand why they would do that. I think they looked at this like it was like a 3 or 4 year deal and kind of like a first round pick. First round picks are really valuable, and I don't think that they were just gonna use that just to like, oh, let's just get this guy for 1 year, blah blah blah. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me that they would cut him. And I also disagree with a lot of people who think that he just didn't fit in the offense. I just don't see that. So I think he was improving as the year went on. I think people were expecting this miraculous, like, oh yeah, he's just going to fit in immediately, like no problem, and it's just going to be perfect all the way through. But the whole Seahawks offense struggled for the first half of the year, and so I just don't get the logic in cutting him. I just don't like it. Like he's a elite player at a position where he's making actually, they're using him as a tight end, but he is a de facto receiver a lot of the time. And $9 million for a top tier receiver is a pretty good bargain, honestly. So I think I just don't see the logic in him getting cut. I think that he's going to be one of their core players for a few years.
Absolutely. I mean, he's one of the elite players. I mean, we have to find out what he's going to do on the field before we start judging how his injury is going to affect him. We don't know yet. And also in that article, I suggested that Doug Baldwin would get extended for similar money to Randall Cobb.
What is that?
And
Say,
what's that?
which is how much?
I said 4 years, 42 million. So,
Mhm.
and with like 17 million guaranteed, I went slightly higher than Randall Cobb. One thing that, and I didn't point this out as well, is that, Randall Cobb was a contract. So this would be a contract extension. Obviously,
Mhm.
Doug Baldwin still has a year left on his deal. And people were saying, well, how can you pay Jimmy Graham 9 million and Doug Baldwin 10 million? Well, that's not how it works. That's not how it's not just 40 million, 10, 10, 10, 10. That's not how contracts work. Doug Baldwin has made like
Dun, 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 dun.
$9 million in his career up until this point.
Right.
You can give him a bunch of money up front and not change his, as far as I know, his 2016 cap hit.
Right.
A lot of it's going to be in the back.
First year cap hits are low.
Right. And Jimmy Graham, he's only got this year and next year left on his contract with nothing guaranteed. So there is you can extend Doug and not do anything to change this year's cap, and then you're talking about, we'll reevaluate it next year. But I do think that, and I went into this season thinking, Doug Baldwin, blah, blah, blah. I'm not that impressed. I'm impressed with him on a game-to-game basis, maybe in some of the plays that he made, but this isn't the offense, and he's not the player to make it work, like in terms of being a huge superstar that's you can't part with. But I think obviously as the year went on and him and Russell Wilson started to become friends finally, he was able to put up the type of production that you expect from a top option at the receiver position. So I don't think that there is another player. Obviously Tyler Lockett could be a very special receiver, but why not have Lockett and Baldwin? Because Lockett's, he's not signed for 3 more years. There's no reason to choose one or the other. I think that you go with both.
Yeah.
You've got Jimmy Graham. They're all affordable. What do you think about Doug Baldwin on the type of contract that I suggested?
I would be for that. I would be happy with that. I think he's kind of proven this year that he's the kind of player that you want to pair up with Russell Wilson long term. I was not necessarily convinced of that before the year started, and there was all these, you hear about it, and Pete Carroll's even talked about it's like how they're like kind of like brothers. They fight a little bit, but they're also really great friends and blah blah blah. So like, I was always a little bit concerned, like, oh, is he undermining Russell Wilson, blah blah blah. But like this year, they really got on the same page, and they look like he looks like the kind of receiver you want to pair with Russell Wilson long term because they have a lot of chemistry. They know each other. He's been huge in third downs, and obviously he was really, really good scoring touchdowns this year. I don't know if that will necessarily carry over and be, reproducible next year, but I do think he's like a 6 or 7 to 8 touchdown type of player easily.
And I've been in that locker room a couple times, and I think that one thing that Pete Carroll really likes, and I think the other coaches and management likes, is Doug Baldwin really is a locker room leader, and he really is a leader. You saw him in the Minnesota Vikings game, and the way that he talks to Russell Wilson, the way that he has no fear in talking to anyone in there. He's not going to back down to anybody on the team. He will not sugarcoat anything for anyone. I mean, he's a true leader, and I think that carries some weight, and they're not going to let him go over a little bit of money, which is really what it is. But I think at the same time, Doug Baldwin has to maybe give some concessions as well. And if he signs for less than what I suggested, it probably will be because anything can happen in the next year. And Doug Baldwin hasn't really made a lot of money in his career relative to other football players. So
I think especially
ones that have been productive.
Yeah, if he's gonna get a third contract, because this will be his third contract, right? I think now
313.
Yeah, now would be the time to do it. Because I don't think you're going to lead the NFL in touchdowns ever again, probably.
Right.
I mean, he might, who knows? But
you don't want to risk reverting back to where you were before and then going into free agency.
Right. So I think, it would probably behoove him to get a new deal locked up, an extension, and it might not be as high as what you projected, but it might be close,
Yeah, and
Um,
if there was one thing that too, it's like how long did the Seahawks want to go on it? Because it is, and I may have jumped the gun a little bit in saying 4 years past this year. Maybe it's 3 years past this year. Then you've got
right,
4 years, so it's a 4 year contract with a 3 years extension basically.
right.
And what it
That
really will be is a 2 year contract for a good amount of money, and then 2 more years where the Seahawks are able to get out of it if they have to. That's
yeah,
basically what most NFL contracts are like.
yeah, and that's definitely the Seahawks MO too. So
The other
um,
thing in that article that I think people took issue with in a certain sense, or at least thought that I was crazy about, is Jeremy Lane. I said that Jeremy Lane, I wasn't too worried about it because I think Jeremy Lane could be had at 1 or 2 years for $2 or $3 million a year, and I think that there's plenty of reason to believe that that's true because I know that everybody loves Jeremy Lane, and I know that Jeremy Lane is a good player, but let's face the facts: he's missed more than half of the last 2 seasons. It's not in his first 2 seasons he was a backup, and then
mhm.
in his third season he missed most of the season, and then in his fourth season, this last year, his fourth season, obviously he started out on PUP. He's got an ACL injury in his history. There's He's never been a starter for longer than a couple of games. He started like 2 or 3 or 4 games in his career. He hasn't stayed on the field. He's not consistent. But he has enough potential to say, hey, if you go out there right now, if you come back to the Seahawks on a 1 year, $2.5 million deal, if you play 16 games, you know that you're the leader, you know that you're in the lead to be a starter right now off the jump. If you play 16 games next year, you're going to go out. You could get a $50 million deal. If you go somewhere
Right.
else, you're not going to have any of that kind of guarantee. You know what the Seahawks secondary is. You've seen what it's done for other players, and we believe you have the potential to start on the outside opposite Richard Sherman. You do that, and you do well, you'll be one of the highest paid cornerbacks in the NFL. You go out there somewhere else right now, yeah, maybe if you don't re-sign with us, maybe you'll get a 3 year, $9 million or $12 million deal, but that's not going to be nearly as valuable as going 1 more year or 2 more years with us and then getting a huge contract because you're capable of doing that.
Yeah, I don't even think that's that. I don't think that's that crazy. I think kind of reminds me of Walter Thurmond a little bit. Um, he was the same kind of deal. Like he always showed talent, always showed ability, but he was injured like I don't know how many games, probably more than half also. And I'm
Right.
looking at your thing. I'm looking at your article now. Lane missed 19 of 32 games over the last 2 seasons. Like that's definitely a big factor. And not to mention, last year when teams went out and signed some of the Seahawks former players to be corners, like the track record was definitely not so good. Like Byron Maxwell, didn't necessarily live up to the billing. And so
Right.
there's the element of like, you're a Seahawks corner and you're playing in this system, and it doesn't necessarily translate in like basically everything that you just said. So, I think
Right.
I don't think it's that crazy that you could see him. I maybe wouldn't go as low as 2 million. I'd probably say more like 3.5 or 4. But
It's tough
a
because
prove it deal
we're
wouldn't be that
really,
weird.
we're really valuing a lot. I mean, people really, really like Jeremy Lane, and that's I think that's clouding some judgments because at the end of the day, has not played very much, and he hasn't necessarily just gone in and taken over that starting cornerback position. There was a lot of switchback between him and Deshaun Shedd. There's still a lot of, I think there's still work to do, and you could say that he has perhaps more potential as a cornerback, maybe, than any of the other guys that the Seahawks have brought in besides Richard Sherman. I think that you could say that about a guy like Jeremy Lane, but it doesn't matter if you don't have any potential, if you can't stay on the field and if you can't prove and win the job. So that's what we're really looking for Jeremy Lane. If you also can look at, like you said, Thurmond, there are failures like Brandon Browner in a way and Maxwell at times, but Thurmond just had a great season at safety. And, I think he started all season for the Eagles. Ron Parker is, starting at safety. I mean, I don't know if necessarily, that means Jeremy Lane has to switch to safety, but I think there is plenty to be said about learning, whatever the kick step technique or just learning from Pete Carroll and being a part of this defense. So, maybe 2 million is cutting it low, but I think Deshaun Shedd was like 2.4 million last year with the restricted, something along those lines. And I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's 2.5, maybe it's 3, maybe it's 3.5. But I do think that within the next month, Jeremy Lane could sign a a deal that won't break the bank for anybody. Speaking of the bank, let's take this opportunity in the middle of the show to thank some more of our Patreon donors. Patreon is a website designed to help creative types, fund their business for the creative things that they're putting out there for the people. And if you're one of the people listening to this, we want to let you know that we are using any money that we get through donations to improve the show and the show quality. Maybe you can hear it through the microphones that we're using right now.
I hope so.
We certainly hope so. Both of us are using the microphones this week, and we hope that it sounds of quality because we got quality microphones. We want to thank some of the people out there like Karen, who pledged $5. Karen is a good name because Karen always reminds me of the general wife. Like if you're gonna have a tweet where you're talking about your wife that doesn't exist, you'd be like Karen. Isn't that sort of the wife name?
Yeah, I suppose so.
I think that it is. It's like, damn it, Karen! I said I'd be there. That makes it sound like I'm an abusive husband.
Yeah, you're not. You told her you'd be there, and then you weren't there.
Yeah, but Karen, we love you. Please come back to us. The kids miss you. We want to thank Justin Leon, the professional, for pledging $5.
Thank you.
You like Leon Professional?
I do. That's a great movie.
It is. There is some sort of creepy vibe to it.
There is a little bit of a weird relationship between. I can't think of her name right now.
Natalie Portman.
Yeah, Natalie Portman and
Jean Rousseau.
Leon. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's creepy about it is I don't want to tell tales out of school, but I believe that the director of that movie, who went on to do like The Transporter and that kind of stuff, I think that he had like a relationship with Natalie Portman or someone like that. That was like his girlfriend or something at the time was maybe like 15. I don't know. I think that's why there are certain elements of inappropriateness in that movie.
Okay.
But anyway, thanks, Leon, for your pledge of $5. Every single one of these thanks is sort of turning into
really weird tangents, but yeah.
Rob Olson, you pledged $5. Want to thank Rob Olson. Speaking of Rob's,
where are you going to go with that?
Rob Staten and I have 3000 NFL mock draft coming out usually Mondays or Tuesdays, so check that out. This week, we had someone from USA Today come on and speak of the NFL draft, so that was a good episode.
Cool.
Go download that. I want to thank Daniel Vakulich for pledging $5. Where would you say the name Vakulich comes from?
Well, I wouldn't want to offend him, but it sounds like Eastern European, Russian, or Ukrainian, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I'd say Vakulich, like Russian.
Right. When I first thought of it, it reminded me of like Rounders.
No, Oreo. I forget what the quotes are from that movie.
Pay that man his money.
He
beat me straight up.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's
we're probably being highly offensive.
We want to, and normally we only thank the people that pledge $5 or more, but in this case, Orlando Mangrobang pledged $1.20, I think, because of the 12 in there.
That's awesome.
Where do you think the last name Mangrobang comes from?
Rolando is the first name?
No, it's Werlando, like a Wario, like Wario, but for maybe a Merlando.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I had a guess on that one.
I don't want to offend him and say that it's a made-up name, but that is what it sounds like.
It does kind of.
Mike Katayama pledged $12, so he did the same thing, but he went 10 times as much. Which we're not balancing one against the other. We're not saying that one's right or one's wrong, but we just want to thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Isn't the guy from San Francisco Tim Katayama?
The guy that always rags on the 49ers?
Yeah, he tells it like it is.
Tim, there's Jackson. We got Jackson on the line.
Hold on, Jackson. We got a couple more names here, and we'll get to Jackson. Danny, just
Tim
give me a second.
Kawakami, I think his name.
I think I put you on the spot. That's why you're nervous.
Tim Kawakami. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but that's his name. Yeah.
Steven Reynolds, we pledged $5. He just got one of those basic names, and we want to give a big
You're just being mean
special.
to everyone. It's
We
not
want to give a
basic. It's a
big
great
special,
name.
big time thank you to Ian Harwood, who pledged $40.
Wow. Holy cow. Thank you.
You have blown Danny away and made him speechless, Ian Harwood. So thank you so much for your pledges, and we'll have the link in the post for Patreon if you want to help us get through the next month and keep improving the show for 2016. And speaking of improving the show, with us now is Jackson Bevins at Jackson Bevins on Twitter, a field goals writer. Jackson, how you doing, man? You got some off-season writing plans?
Yeah, some, but I'm doing real well.
Great. Okay, so we're talking. We've been talking about the Seahawks. We're talking about the contract situations. Jackson, if you want to weigh in, we'd love to get your opinion here because we were just talking about, I had written about some of the situations at contract that the Seahawks have to deal with, and curious, what are your opinions on a Doug Baldwin extension? Do you think he's worth, say, Randall Cobb money, where he might get a 4-year, $40 million deal, or the Seahawks don't have to make any moves right now, but it might behoove both sides to get a contract done before the season. So what do you think Doug Baldwin could be worth beyond this year?
Well, as you guys know, I'm a pretty unapologetic capitalist when it comes to this stuff. So Doug Baldwin's worth whatever someone's going to pay for him, and someone would pay $10 million a year for him. So, if Seattle can save a little bit by signing him early, something a little less than that, I think you got to do it. What we saw in the last half of this season, really for the first time in the Pete Carroll era, is receiving core that you can actually see being sustainable. There's obviously an extremely high comfort level with Russell Wilson, as Doug Baldwin, Jermaine Kearse, and Tyler Lockett finished this season as 3 of the top 4 guys in terms of passer efficiency when being targeted. So, Baldwin, of course, being the most productive and valuable member of that group. I think, especially with not knowing what you're going to have from Jimmy Graham next year, having that continuity moving forward, having Russell Wilson have someone who knows that is going to be on the same page with him in hot reads and knows how to scramble with him when the play breaks down. If it means overpaying a little bit for Doug Baldwin, I just think you got to do it. So I'd be in favor of them trying to get something done early, provided a couple other guys get taken care of.
What do you mean by that? What couple other guys?
I would really like to see Lane stick around. I think that he's going to be a pretty important one. And, I'm anticipating that if they stick around, we might see some bumps in Bennett and Chancellor. I'd hate to see holdouts there again. So those are three players that I would really like to see be taken care of. And if you can make Baldwin working with that, that'd be great. Now, in my heart, like right in the part of me that's canine, I want to keep Bruce Irvin around. But I don't know that you can pay 3 linebackers what Seattle would be paying 3 linebackers to keep him around. So but that's my heart is with keeping Bruce.
He's a canine at heart too.
He is, absolutely.
Was Jeremy Lane? No, or was it Thurl Simon that tweeted that?
Jeremy Lane.
Jeremy Lane, canine at heart. Okay.
Yeah.
All full circle.
Never calls, only texts.
Danny, go ahead and jump in.
Yeah. Hey, Jackson, how's it going, man?
Yeah, good, man.
Thanks for coming on our show. Well, I was thinking we could transition to the Super Bowl since it is Super Bowl week. Kenny and I kind of talked about the Seahawks free agency situation, some of that stuff. But, you've been a vocal critic of Cam Newton. You hate him. And you always talk about how much you think he's stupid for celebrating and stuff. Expand on that.
Jackson.
Yeah, well, I just wish we could get back to respecting the game. As you know, when it comes to playing games, respect means making sure you're not showing any emotion or having any fun. And so if Cam Newton would just understand that this game was built on the backs of blue-collar Americans that were just out doing their job, I think that he would show us as fans more respect.
Just to
how I
be
feel
clear,
about
just to be totally clear for anyone who's listening, this is complete sarcasm. Because I
We
do
don't need
feel
to do
that
one of those slash S's in a visual vocal format. We
I
get
think
it.
it is important to clarify sarcasm at times because
I don't know, man.
do
If you
have a
can't
fairly
say
literal
sarcasm,
body at times.
what's that? Say that again, Jackson.
Oh, I was just saying, our readership can tend to be fairly literal at times.
Right.
Never hurts to inject sarcasm font now and again.
I mean,
Okay,
I
so
don't know. If you're saying something online, if you have to do a slash S, then just don't say it. If you can't convey sarcasm through your words, then you failed at sarcasm. You can't just put it a slash S and expect everything to be okay.
Totally agree with you, Kenny. Totally agree with you.
Thank you. Now, one thing that we have not agreed on, again, we can go back to it in a non-sarcastic way. I don't know if we never necessarily not agreed on it, but I think we have different stances on Cam Newton. My opinions have nothing to do with Cam Newton's celebration. I don't care. I mean, it's not about. I mean, it seems like these days you can't criticize Cam Newton without someone saying that you're criticizing his personality or his celebrations. I'm not blind to the fact that if Cam Newton for say a Seahawks or on the Seahawks, or if I was a Panthers fan, I would probably see the celebrations in a much more like positive light, where I'd be like, oh yeah, this is great. In the same way we all support Richard Sherman, it's no different. I'm only criticizing him, as a player. But that being said, the way that he's played over the last, I'd say, especially 5 or 6 weeks, is different than the player that he was for the first, 4.5 years of his career. I think this is I think maybe at a certain point, Cam Newton, once everything started to come together and people started calling him the MVP, I think Cam Newton started living up to what they were calling him, more so than the other way around.
Yeah, I think that Cam Newton as a player is a pretty unique thing, and I think that what makes quantifying Cam Newton really hard from a statistical standpoint is there's nothing else like him. We've never seen it. This is football's LeBron James in terms of what someone at a quote unquote skill position can do at that size. This is overly simplistic, but I kind of want to start here. The single most important thing that you can do in football is score touchdowns. And what we're seeing from Cam Newton is probably the most powerful touchdown creating force that the NFL has seen. Just in terms of how many ways he can score. I mean, he can score. The Panthers score from anywhere on the field, and he can score from anywhere on the field 2 different ways. And I think we've seen other quarterbacks with a similar dual threat ability. What we've never seen is one with that kind of ability and the willingness to transform into a pure running back when necessary. 10 rushing touchdowns, I don't care what your size is, 10 rushing touchdowns in a season doesn't come easily. He's done it twice now in 5 years. And that's a willingness thing, to hear Greg Olsen talk about it. He's like, how many, there's a reason other quarterbacks don't score as often as he does. It's because so few are willing to run full speed into 3 defensive linemen. So, there's going to be things. Cam Newton's probably never going to complete 70% of his passes, but he stopped turning the ball over. And, another knock against him is the weak schedule, and they played a lot of weak pass defenses, and that's true. But, I mean, what do you want from him to do? They beat everybody. He put up great numbers. And I think that the shift that we saw this year was really evident in their first game against Seattle. I think Cam Newton in the past, after just a horrible first 3 quarters, like people forget because of the way the game ended, just how poor of a game Cam Newton was having. And in the past, we'd expect to see him sitting by himself or with a towel over his head or sulking or whatever, but he didn't. He came back and played his best quarter of football maybe all season. And, even when they were down, showing him on the sidelines, he was very engaged. And so you got to think that something sort of switched there. But, if we judge a quarterback based purely on their passer efficiency, Cam Newton's never going to be considered an all-time great. I would just say that you have to broaden the scope when looking at who Cam Newton is as a player than you would with almost any other quarterback.
When you talk about...
Go on.
Go ahead. Kenny, did you have a question?
Well, no, I'm just saying, in this Super Bowl context, you do have Peyton Manning, and they're very different quarterbacks at very different times in their career. But no matter what kind of a quarterback you are, it doesn't matter. People will judge you as, great or less than great. There's always going to be some order of things. So, we're at the 5th year of Cam Newton's career. I mean, I can pose this to both of you guys. Do you think that Cam Newton could be on a trajectory where he's considered as great as Peyton Manning by the time it's all said and done? And I'll ask you first, Jackson.
Could he? Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's you get an athlete like that who starts to come into his own, and you just sort of remove the ceiling. So yes, I think he's one of the few people on the planet that has that ability. I mean, think about Cam Newton. I'm super hesitant to try and quantify what a winner is, right? But everywhere Cam Newton has gone, that place that he's been at has seen unprecedented levels of success. High school, junior college, now in the pros. He has elevated every team that he's ever been on to stratospheric heights. So I don't think it's fluky that they're in the Super Bowl this year. I don't think anyone who's watched them play in the playoffs would dare say that it's fluky they're in the Super Bowl. And to be considered as one of the greats, and if you're talking Peyton Manning, you're slotting him somewhere 1 in 5 all time as a quarterback. He's got that potential. I still think that's asking a lot, It's he in a lot of ways kind of reminds me of Vince Carter. I think Vince Carter had the skills to be as good as a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan or a LeBron James, and he was so very good for a very long time and never made that transcendent leap. I think that you might see some of that with Cam, and even that would be a super successful career if he, has a 12, 14-year career and, is a top 10 quarterback for most of them. But Peyton Manning was the best or the second best quarterback for basically 90% of his career. And I just, it's no knock on Cam Newton to say I don't think he's going to spend a decade as one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in the league. So that said, he plays, they've built a team around his style that I think will allow them to be competitive for a very long time, and I think he'll have a chance to win multiple Super Bowls.
Yeah, Danny, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree exactly with that. I think.
Oh, then you don't need to say anything. We got it. Danny said.
Disagree.
No, I mean, I basically, I think he has the ability, the talent, and all that to be counted among the all-time greats as a quarterback. But I mean, again, it's like Jackson said, like there's how do you really quantify that? Because there's a lot of it is like I feel for a lot of guys it's like, oh, they have X numbers of championships, right? They have so many Super Bowl wins. Because I think you got guys like Steve Young and Joe Montana and all this, like, oh, Joe Montana, he was undefeated in the Super Bowl. That makes him one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Random things like that kind of go into fan perception of what players' careers are. So I think.
Isn't it funny? Just real quick, Danny, before we lose that point, isn't it funny how we criticize people more for losing in a championship than losing before a championship?
Right. It makes no sense. It's totally crazy. I mean, I just think oh, that's great. That Joe Montana is, undeniably one of the great quarterbacks of all time. But where do you put him? I don't know, somewhere in the top 10, I guess, or 15 or whatever. It's like I don't know how you really choose that, and it's just in terms of ranking players in the all-time history of the NFL. I just think it's you're always going to get disagreements about that kind of stuff. I mean, hell, they still talk about who's better between Brady and Manning and all that, and that will never end, I'm guessing. So the question is bunk, is what I'm saying. Don't ever ask me that again.
Go to hell. I'll take issue with one thing that Jackson that you said, and that's that Cam Newton has had success, everywhere he goes. I mean, you've got one college year. I mean, you've had success at one college when the whole team was stacked. I mean, I don't really care. He's had five seasons.
What do you want him to do besides taking?
Well, that's just the thing is that I'm not ready to say
13-0, winning a Heisman, winning a national championship.
In a sample of 6 seasons, 1 in college, 5 in the NFL, he's got 2 losing seasons. So I don't really, when I compared that to Peyton Manning, who had 4 seasons as a starter at Tennessee, and his worst record was as a freshman when he went 8-4. After that, they were perennial 10, 11 win team. And then he goes in the NFL. His first season, right after coming out of 3-13, just as Cam Newton, Cam Newton did an admirable job in his first season, taking over a bad team. Peyton Manning went 3-13. In his 4th season, he went 6-10, and he has never done worse than that. He's always won 10 games in every other season, including going 7-2 this year as a starter. Cam Newton, just last year, they were 7-8-1. I mean, to me there is fallibility with Cam Newton. He is not an elevator,
seasons, right?
What's that?
Peyton Manning's had 2 losing seasons, right?
Yeah, in 18 years.
Right. Which seasons were those for him?
1-4.
Yeah, right. So 2 losing seasons in his first 5 in the NFL.
Yeah, and I'm saying that, and 4 winning seasons in college, not 1.
Well, right, but Cam Newton went 13-0 in college. I don't know what's better, 1 year and being untouchable, or 4 years of almost being the best.
4 years. I'm telling you.
Yes, this is a weird argument that you're making.
We're just saying that Cam Newton elevates everywhere he goes. He's gone 2 places.
Well, I don't
really count high school for anything.
No,
I don't even know what his high school record is, but
to discredit my point, you'd have to say that they haven't gotten better anywhere that he's gone, and I don't think that you could credibly make that claim.
Yeah, I think just like many other even decent quarterbacks, teams have gotten better when they've gone there. I think that Brian Hoyer made the Texans better this year. It just depends what you're replacing. If you're replacing Jimmy Clausen, the worst quarterback of the last 20 years, I certainly hope you're going to get better. And he's done a great job. And like I said, he's matured this year into a better player than he was the last few years. If he goes on, the other question to pose to you guys is not to compare him to Manning, and not necessarily, you don't have to just go around. It's not all about the compare game. But I think if I asked you guys about Russell Wilson and if he could be in that class with Peyton Manning, the answer would be yes, at least a lot quicker than it would be for Cam Newton. Is that true or false?
Well, I do think that you can make some of the similar arguments that you could make for Cam Newton. Russell Wilson's done similar things too, in terms of, he's been to 2 Super Bowls already, won 1. He's, quote, won more games than any player through his first 4 years or whatever. So those are all variables that you could talk about. But I don't know. To me, it's like, again, it's.
North Carolina State got better for 3 years. Wisconsin got better, obviously, in his 4th year. And the Seahawks haven't posted a losing record with him. 10 wins at least every year with Russell Wilson. I think that definitely. Like I'm just saying, there's more of a track record with Russell Wilson than there is with Cam Newton, even though he's been in the league for a year less.
Did we lose Jackson?
No, I'm here. I'm not entirely sure what the point being made is here. Is
it's that if people are consistently better for a longer time, that means more to me because they've proven more.
I guess, but I wasn't saying that Cam was better than Peyton. I just saying that. Yeah, I don't know. I think that Cam Newton's a really, really good quarterback. I doubt that he'll end up as the top 5 all-time quarterback. I think Russell Wilson could, for sure. I still think he's got a super long way to go. But to me, the idea that there's a huge gap between where Peyton Manning was at Cam Newton's age or where Russell Wilson is at Cam Newton's age and where Cam is, I don't really see that.
Speaking of Peyton Manning, do you think that this is his last game in the NFL?
I hope so. For better or worse, I hope so. If it's not, what's he going to top it with?
He could join the Rams next year.
Yeah.
Did you see that? By the way?
I would be fine with that.
Okay, so we've talked about Cam Newton and Peyton Manning a lot. What do you think? Who is your Super Bowl pick? We did we'll throw a little plug in here. We did the NFL Picks podcast all year, and Jackson beat me at that. So what is your Super Bowl pick?
To be clear, I beat him by 1 game. So And to be clear, Danny accidentally picked the Redskins on opening day too. So, I don't know that I necessarily was better than Danny this year, but I did take the Panthers. And the main reason, man, I wouldn't be surprised if Denver wins, and it's the first Super Bowl in a while where I'll be happy with whoever wins. It's actually, I think, been a really long time since that was the case for me. I think even if Denver's defense really comes out and plays well, you're still going to need to score at least 24 points to beat the Panthers the way that they're playing. And I just am really dubious whether Peyton Manning-led offense right now can score more than 24 on the Panthers. And I think there's a very good chance that they'll need to score considerably more than that. So I think that Denver's got a better defense. I think Denver had the best defense in the NFL this year. I think that it's one of the better defenses we've seen in modern football. And Von Miller is coming off of one of the single greatest defensive performances we've seen in the playoffs ever. So I think that they can cause some trouble. But I think that the way Carolina has success, they don't take a lot of high-risk plays. They do throw the ball downfield a lot, but it's desperation throws or really even that contested coverage. They pick their spots really well because they run so well. Cam Newton is extremely hard to sack, and that's kind of how we saw them have so much success against New England, is ability to pressure the quarterback. I think the Panthers are better suited to deal with that than the Patriots were with their offensive line and receiver situation. So, I think Carolina wins by a touchdown at least.
What'd you ask? I picked the Panthers. Kenny, who did you pick?
Well, I talked about this on when we talked about it on 3000 NFL Mock Draft this week, and we were making our picks. I really struggled, and it took me a good 30 seconds of sort of stalling and pausing before coming to a decision, because I do think that it's a lot closer than people give it credit for. I don't know necessarily that Cam Newton is, that hard to sack. 33 sacks this year, 38 the year before, 42 the year before that. As compared to a Peyton Manning, surprisingly, who just gets rid of the ball quicker, I think Cam Newton definitely has adjusted well to the blitz, and I think that he's clearly improved in that area. So I don't know. The Denver could definitely struggle to get to him. They're not the same as the New England Patriots. Offensive line. Ryan Khalil is a much better center than Brian Stork. These are definitely factors, and that'll come into play. But I don't think that the Panthers. I think that it's the Panthers that'll struggle to score more than 20 points. I think that is the real issue that's going to be at hand. I think that the Panthers' offense, their maximum amount of points that I think that the offense can score on the Denver defense, which I consider to be the best in the NFL, is about 20 points. That being said, if Peyton Manning throws 2 or 3 interceptions, that's probably the ball game. They can't have that either, and that's a possibility. Luke Kuechly with pick sixes in each of the last 2 weeks. They led the league in interceptions. He led the NFL. He almost led the NFL in interceptions on only 9 starts. Kirk Coleman with 7 interceptions. It's just insane. Josh Norman, it's insane how much interception power they have back there. That being said, I'm leaning towards the Denver Broncos I think it's going to be one of those games that ends on a field goal.
Kenny, I would be happy to bet you any amount that Carolina scores more than 20 in this one. I'm looking through their schedule, and I don't see where that would come from.
I said that their offense wouldn't score more than 20. So if you're okay with that.
I would still, I'd be fine betting on that. Yeah, it'll be super interesting. It's so funny to see Denver just 2 years later on the flip side, probably the best defense going against the league's highest scoring offense, when it was, the literal exact opposite just 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I think the Broncos this year have honestly had one of the most fascinating football seasons of my lifetime.
How the hell did they make it to the fucking Super Bowl?
Yeah, honestly, it's been incredible that they did. They did it with really without a quarterback all season, and really without a running game all season.
Yeah, It's
I
been
mean, that's
crazy.
how good I think their defense is. I mean,
Their
it's
defense is really, really good.
not a high action type of defense. It's just to shut you down and keep you from wanting to do anything you want to do, sort of defense. When you've got two elite pass rushers on either side, and then you've got two perhaps elite cornerbacks, and then you've got these great linebackers and power up the middle. It's a really, really underrated defense, which is crazy because they're first in net yards per pass attempt allowed, first in rushing yards per carry allowed, first in yards allowed. I mean, all over the defense, they are super talented, and I think when you go up against it, and that's the thing is if they can create the type of pressure, if it wasn't for the Seahawks getting off to such a bad start, I mean, the Panthers' offense scored just 24 points on the Seahawks when everything was going their way, and then 0 in the second half. And I think that the Denver Broncos, as long as they manage to avoid the same types of mistakes, it's going to be difficult for Ted Ginn and Devin Funchess to create any kind of space. And I think that Cam Newton will struggle to pass the ball all day long, and that's not necessarily. And hey, Peyton Manning has struggled in Super Bowls for his entire career, so we'll see what happens. I definitely think that the pass defense for Denver is going to stifle the Panthers' passing offense, and so we'll sort of see what happens. If they can continue to be the number one rush defense as well, Carolina, I think, will struggle to move the ball.
Yeah, it's going to be really fascinating. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Danny.
No, I was just going to say one other factor that I saw today. I think Bill Barnwell wrote it in his preview. And he was talking about how the Broncos actually haven't faced any read option teams this year, other than I think the Chiefs. So they've really not faced that this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of what happens with that. I mean, obviously, Wade Phillips knows what he's doing, so I imagine they'll be prepared. But I don't think they have a lot of experience defending that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and to a couple of those points there, it is interesting what you say about them not facing a read option offense, because when you watch their defensive ends, they are crashing defensive ends and outside linebackers.
Right.
They're kind of those heat-seeking type players. I think one thing that kind of gets lost in that Denver's number one rush defense is that they haven't had to face a lot of that, and the Panthers are probably the best read option team in the NFL right now. So that's going to be really fascinating. The other thing I wanted to touch on is, and you mentioned his name, Wade Phillips. Man, what a career!
Yeah.
Like, that guy just turns out sensational defenses everywhere he goes. I think that, and this is probably his finest work to date, but I mean, he carried Peyton Manning to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's insane.
His defense did. And it was cool. I can't remember who it was who was reporting it on Media Day or whatnot, but Denver player after Denver player saying the reason they like playing for Wade Phillips is he schemes to talent, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
So he brings in immensely talented guys, but then says, okay, what can we do to really highlight what makes him great? And instead of saying, here's my defense and it's really rigid and you need to conform. So I just got a great deal of respect for him, and his name doesn't get thrown out a lot, but I think he's one of the great defensive coordinators, the game's seen in a really long time.
Definitely. I wanted to, unless Kenny has anything to add on the Super Bowl, I wanted to end the show today with a quick fire question session with you, Jackson, just kind of about everything. Kenny, do you have anything to add before we go on to that?
No.
Kenny,
Okay.
did you end up choosing the Broncos in this one?
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's
Okay, so-
interesting. I mean, this is I don't know if this has ever happened before. I mean, it's the number one defense by DVOA and the number two defense by DVOA. It's insane.
That's crazy.
It could be really.
Wow.
It's just going to be a fucking battle out there. I would have no problem with saying that Carolina's offense is considerably better than Denver's offense.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I just have that much respect for, as you said, Wade Phillips' defense. Their job against the Kansas City Chiefs this year, though, they went 1-1 and they allowed 24 points and 29 points. It wasn't like they were getting crushed on defense. They held them to about 300 yards both times. That second game was Peyton Manning's. Obviously, that was the one that he had the worst game of his career. 4 interceptions in the first half or something like that. That was a big factor, and that's the game plan for the Panthers this week, is to do exactly what the Chiefs did to beat the Broncos at home in Week 10, which is, get all of those turnovers, turn them into points, because if you can do that, that's gonna, because Denver's defense will keep them in the game. Denver's defense will not go away, but if you can put points on the board on special teams or on defense, then you will win the game. So that's going to be, and Carolina does that with great amounts of whatever I'm trying to say, but they do that. So it'll be a very good game. I'm trying to think of, I don't even know who the Broncos offensive coordinator is, but that'll be the key. I mean, if he can get a game plan in there without exposing Manning, and if he can get something in there to move the ball, I mean, that should be the key right there, is Denver's offense.
Gary Kubiak is probably the de facto coordinator.
I'm
not sure who I don't even actually know either.
Probably Peyton Manning.
Yeah. If it's not Kubiak,
the offensive
Manning.
coordinator is Rick Dennison.
I've never heard that name in my life.
That's hilarious. You've got a Super Bowl team, and I wonder if 10% of NFL fans could tell you who the Broncos offensive coordinator is, and they're in the Super Bowl.
He made that name up. It's not Rick Dennison.
He's actually been with the Denver Broncos. I'm just looking at now on Pro Football Reference. He came in with the Broncos in '95 as their offensive assistant, meaning he was there with Kubiak and Elway in '97 and '98. He stayed there till 2009. Went with Gary Kubiak to the Texans, and then to the Ravens. So he's been with Kubiak for his entire career.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Interesting. Okay, so let's move on to the quick fire round. Jackson, if you don't have an answer, just make something up.
Yep.
And Kenny, feel free to jump in here. I'm just going to read a couple from the list, but you jump in too, okay, if you want.
Sure thing.
What'd you say?
I said sure thing. Nothing.
Oh, I thought you said okay, thanks. Okay, so Jackson, first off, I know that you like to make bets. You just tried to bet Kenny about the game. What is one prop bet that you're going to bet on?
Length of the national anthem. I'm taking the under.
What do you remember what the time was?
Yeah, it's 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
You think it's gonna be under? Do you know have you looked at like the averages and things like that?
I think last year was like 141, so I don't know what she's planning on doing. I know it's probably going to be like 45 seconds of her lowering down into the stadium, and if they count that, then I might lose. But yeah, that one I feel great about. I actually haven't checked out many of the others, but feel free to throw some of them at me if they're interesting.
What do you think of
my answer would be how many seconds into the game Cam Newton celebrates? I'm going with 1.
Take the under. What do you think of the halftime show of Coldplay and Beyonce?
Yeah, that's so weird, man. I mean, it's the Super Bowl halftime show. I think it's going to be awesome. I mean, I dig spectacle. I don't have to be super into the artist, really.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to probably buy any albums I wouldn't have otherwise, but I do want to see a spectacle, and I'm sure that they'll make it that.
Do you think they'll try to recreate a Left Shark situation?
I hope not. I think sort of the novelty of it, and it does still make me laugh. The novelty of it is kind of funny, and it might seem a little tired. So I hope not, but Beyonce is one of the great entertainers on the planet, so I'm expecting good things.
I absolutely loved Left Shark, Right Shark. I was obsessed with that. Who is your favorite player?
In the Super Bowl or just
in the world?
Odell Beckham Jr.
Ooh.
That's all I for you.
Yeah. My wife's favorite player is Odell Beckham Jr. My favorite player in the NFL.
Is that the name that she gave your penis?
It's not Junior.
My
As
bad.
a sports show, we're allowed to be a little bit
What?
raucous
Yeah.
and dirty.
Yeah. It's all right. Favorite player in the NFL is, man, it's probably Earl Thomas. And I was really hoping that there was a non-Seahawks, so as not to sound like a homer, but I've never been fascinated with the mind of an athlete the way that I am with Earl.
Oh, absolutely.
And honestly,
Thomas
he's probably
Rawls.
had the most decorated first 6 years in the history of the safety position, right? Like 4 times All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler.
Right.
I mean, he's
And
a Hall of Famer already.
And he's pissed that he wasn't All-Pro this year, so you know he's going to play well next year.
Yeah. I was so sorry for the pause. I was trying really, really hard to think of someone not Earl Thomas, but
And not Odell Beckham Jr.
she'll frame by frame the Head and Shoulders commercial with him.
What was your favorite play from the 2015 season? Any team? I know these are probably not the best things just to ask off the top of your head, but first that you think of.
I'm going to
Yeah,
throw in
yeah,
a Doug Baldwin catch.
Honestly, my favorite play of the 2015 season, like at least the one that jumped to my mind, was Martavis Bryant's catch against the Broncos in the playoffs in the back corner of the end zone. You guys
Yeah.
remember?
Yeah, where he
Where,
caught it with like
Caught it
against
over the
his quad.
shoulder, bobbled it, and then reached behind his legs to catch it, and realized that the only way that he's going to be able to hang on to the ball is to do a flip.
Mhm.
And he did all of that while getting 2 feet down and not letting the ball move in his grasp. Like I don't think I saw anything more incredible than that all season long.
And Kenny, you said Doug Baldwin's catch against the Vikings.
Yeah, but then I'm also like thinking about what about in Week 4 when Blake Bortles had a 3-yard throw to Allen Robinson that went out of bounds, and that's it. That's all that happened.
Yeah, not my favorite play. Thought about it, but loses out to
Look,
Brian.
I'll be honest, I didn't think of that play.
Wow. How could you not think of that play? What about Week
Danny, what
9,
was your favorite
Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, and Isaiah Crowell picks up 2? I mean, that shit is tight.
That shit is tight.
Go on, Dan. What was it?
Man, that is a tough question.
What was
I
the
didn't
right
know that
answer?
I was gonna get asked this. Man, that is really hard. I'm the one asking questions here, so I'm gonna go ahead. What do you expect from the 2016 off season for Seattle? Like, what is the big story?
I think for me, it's going to be the offensive line. And is it blow it up and start over again, or is it let's keep 2 of these pieces, 3 of these pieces, 4 of these pieces, and try and fill it out with practice squad guys or offensive linemen? I think one of the kind of more nebulous relationships the Seahawks have from a fan's perspective is Tom Cable's relationship with the offense as a whole and with his offensive line, because you can totally argue both sides of the same coin. You can say, well, the offensive line has never been great. If he's so great, why aren't they? But the flip side is, well, he's taking all of these guys that are basically newbies at their positions and look at how good they're doing compared to that. But then there's also, he's been giving some high draft capital with Moffitt and Carpenter and some others that haven't worked out. Britt, may not be working out. So I don't know what to make of that, and I would really like to watch a team with a really cohesive line that doesn't take half a season to come together. So that for me is going to be it. I think the big one is going to end up being like, in terms of what gets the most ink spilled about it is probably going to be Cam Chancellor, Michael Bennett, and their contract situations. And, I'm hoping that it's not a situation that was quite as reportedly toxic as we saw this year.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do during the offseason? Oh, I can hear myself.
I am going to quit my cable subscription after the Super Bowl and try and unplug for a bit and come back excited. Last offseason was exhausting for me as a fan. It wasn't really a very enjoyable one at all. And so I'm going to unplug a little bit. I'll obviously be keeping both eyes on the Hawks, but I'm gonna start remembering some of the other stuff that I like to do when it's not football season. So I'm looking forward to that and coming back recharged next year.
Sounds good to me. I can now hear myself in your computer. Did you change something?
This is
I ain't
excellent
changed
podcast.
shit, Danny.
It's definitely we got to turn that off. We can't do any of the echo stuff. We got some complaints last week about echoing, so it's really just it can come from anywhere and anybody. So, but yeah,
I muted Jackson, so we can't hear that anymore.
that was the end of the fire session, rapid fire type session anyway, and it is the end of the show overall. So again, we're going to thank Great Leap Studios. Go to greatleapstudios.com for all your content writing and internet marketing, etc., etc. greatleapstudios.com. Come back on Sunday after the Super Bowl for the instant reaction to the Super Bowl, where me and Danny will be discussing Denver's surprising win and how I was right. And then next week, I guess we'll have some more show. If you want to help us out, check out the Patreon link in the fieldgoals.com page. Follow Jackson on Twitter at Jackson Bevins, at Field Goals, and at Kenneth Arthur S. Jackson, I want to let you in for any parting thoughts or words or discussion. Just to make sure, Danny, if you unmuted him, then he'll have the opportunity. Jackson, final thoughts?
I just muted him.
Danny keeps muting me.
Sorry.
And that's all I have to say about that.
You're back. We can hear you now.
It's,
I know that.
Final message from Jackson is that Danny keeps muting him, which I think is an overarching life situation. And Danny, stop muting Jackson. So
okay, I stopped. I can't hear myself in his computer again, so we're good.
check out fieldgoals.com and subscribe to Reel in the Field Goals on iTunes. Tell a friend, and see you on Sunday.
Screw you, Danny.